What's up, everybody? Joe Sib here with you. Welcome to Rad Parenting. Sitting across from me, my co-host,
Anea Vogue.
and I'm making her laugh. Yes, I am. Hey, we're both super excited about today's show because our good friends at Go-Go Squeeze are our sponsor. Go-Go Squeeze is the best snack ever. You and I were just talking about it. It's in your household.
It is my go-to. It is my go-to, like filling in the last little gap in the lunchbox.
Yeah, and the flavors they have 14 flavors, and you can get Go-Go Squeeze anywhere and everywhere. But the reason we're talking about Go-Go Squeeze is because Go-Go Squeeze, I love saying Go-Go Squeeze.
It's a good.
I just yell it out sometimes. Go-Go Squeeze! But besides them being the sponsor of today's show, and this is our back to school episode, we talked about it last week. We gave a little it was like a brief, maybe Reader's Digest version of what we're going to be doing today. But we're going to help our listeners get through what I like to call the chaos of back to school. It's, for me, going back to school is no different than if I just think about going to see, like when I saw like seeing the Ramones for the first time, and they just came out on stage and they counted 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the whole pit started and it was just chaos, and I lost my friends and we were all just running around in a circle together. That's how it is at my house when we start school. Minus the Ramones and minus beer being thrown into the air at 8 a.m.
Goodness.
But it's just, I don't know about you, Anea, but I know some of our listeners can share in this, is that it feels like you've had summer, everything's been amazing, and then all of a sudden you drop into school and you've got to get up earlier. Mm-hmm. There's lunches to be made. Let's also put in the fact of scheduling.
Homework.
There's going to be homework.
Yep.
There's going to be reading. There's going to be less screen time. Mm-hmm. There's just going to be basically an end to, hey, we'll get to that later. Hey, it's summertime. Stay up as late as you want, like we talked about last week. But really, today's show is really about pulling together a plan
to set our kids up for success.
Exactly. And you've said that before so many times. It is about setting up our kids for success and how it can be easier for us to get through that time. Because like I said, if you don't plan for it before you know it, it's like, wow, we're getting up 2-3 hours earlier than we have been for the last 3 months. Mm-hmm. And I have to get you out the front door on time. Oh, hey, throw in the fact we have a carpool. Oh, throw in the fact I got to get to work. Oh, throw in the fact that I got to pick you up after school. Oh, what are we doing for activities after that? So we're going to be diving into all of that today. And like I said, this show is brought to you by our good friends at Go-Go Squeeze. They are the sponsor of Rad Parenting. Super psyched to have them a part of and this is what I've been saying a lot lately, the Rad Parenting community.
Nice.
Is that cool?
I love it.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners feel like they're part of it.
Yeah, because my friend Jamie Coletta at Side One Dummy Records, where I spend a part of my time when I'm not doing this, she basically kind of came up with the attitude and the idea with our record company that was a community as well. And when I started doing Rad Parenting and you and I started pulling this all together, I was like, from the emails we get and from the reviews that we get on the show, it really is a community, which gets me super scared because I've never been involved with something I feel that's like as important as this show.
Nice.
Do you feel that way when you get the emails from people?
I'm literally blown away every time. I always think they can't get better than this, and then I'll read another one. We had one I read the other day from Indonesia.
Wow.
Like, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
And even like recognition, that particular email really struck me because she was like, we do things a little bit differently here, but I can, the value of what you're saying and blah, 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 and I'm trying to implement those things. And it's just amazing to me that there's people far and wide that are benefiting from what we're doing.
See, even when you say that, I get full anxiety attack because I do not want to let anyone down. But the best thing about the emails that I like is everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're so honest. You were so truthful about totally blowing it with your kids. And I was like, all right, I'm that guy on the show. I'm like, okay, so as long as I keep blowing it, we'll have tons of episodes of Rad Parenting and questions that we can ask Anea. All right, let's jump right into it. School starting. I know for a lot of our listeners, it started this week. Mm-hmm. For some of our listeners, they're maybe a week away.
Yep.
How do we beat the morning chaos, the chaos of the day, the chaos of just joining school again? Anea, it's yours.
It's
Go.
me. And you're on. Okay, so I think what's really important here, and I want to qualify what I said a moment ago about setting our kids up for success. First of all, I don't just mean like success for this school year or success for their like school career per se. I'm talking about an opportunity to help them develop tools that will actually serve them throughout their lives. So I'm really big with my girls. I've always been like, so, here's my job and school is your job. And trying to get them to think that way in part because I want them to have good tools that they can take into adulthood, which includes, and I'm not the best at this, I'm admitting.
Full
Full disclosure that I really want to help my girls create adult lives that have balance. So you want to call it work hard, play hard. You want to call it, go time and chill time, whatever. Those things are really, really important to our overall well-being, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And so the things that I want to talk about today, because you can find lots of lists all over the internet or whatever about back to school tips, but I really sort of want us to think in those terms. That's where I'm coming from.
And right away, when you mention that, the balance, I feel it's so important. I know that I've been guilty of this. I know friends of ours, parents, so guilty of it, of just overscheduling. Mm-hmm. And then I see that the balance isn't there, and that's when the breakdown happens.
Yep. And you start to become resentful, and you start to get burned out, and you start to, and like when I say resentful, not just like sort of, I feel icky, but like resentful of school or resentful of the activities that are supposed to be fun. And so so I really want to sort of plant that seed so however you take these suggestions that I'm going to make today, of course, as always, make them your own, take what works, leave what doesn't. But I would encourage you to approach these suggestions that I'm going to make today from that place of, I want this to be an opportunity to offer tools for my child to ultimately live a balanced life where there is time for work, but also time for play and wellness and all of that.
And the look that the way that you're looking at it, I've never thought of it that way, that this really is part of the bigger picture for our children when they grow up and they are in the workplace or whether they're going to college. Yeah. What you're already saying is that if we set them up to win, they can take, today it's going back to 5th grade or starting 7th grade and take this, hey, let's have some balance in our lives. Yep. Let's also come up with a plan for you to win, ultimately, that they will take to starting high school, to starting college. That is a great way to look at it. Because the first thing I look at it as a parent is, it's on me. Oh my gosh, this is going to affect my life. Now I have to get up earlier. Now I have to do this. But what you're saying is, no, it's even a bigger picture than that. It can really affect their lives. I love that.
Yes. And in that, having them be steering and participating and driving the ship as much as, so it shouldn't, in my opinion, it should not feel like, oh my God, back to school, one more enormous scheduling nightmare for me just to hold as a parent or as a co-parent, but also this is about literally not putting it on your kids, giving your children the opportunity. And that's one of the first things that I want to say, because I think the way I'd like to approach this, because as anybody knows who's got kids of varying ages, the tips that you're going to apply in a, say, kindergarten through 5th or 6th grade context are going to be different than a parent of a kid who's, say, going into middle school through high school, where they have increasing independence. So, but there are a couple of things that I think stretch over both. And so the first thing, and this is going to be for some parents like totally new thinking, but is, to me, the beginning of the school year, and I've said this before, is actually the real new year. It really is. This impacts our lives and our scheduling way more than like New Year's Eve and winter break or whatever.
Absolutely.
Right? And
when you mentioned that last week, I walked away from the episode with, she's absolutely right. I even feel that it's the beginning of the new year in the sense that it is the beginning with them going into a new grade, even down to like, we got to get new clothes.
Yes.
I want a new haircut.
Exactly.
And that feels very new, fresh beginning to me. So I never thought about it that way, though.
Especially when they've just had, summer, say 2 months or 2.5 or 3 months, where there's a ton of growth going on, like both physical growth and emotional, and psychological growth, but also having that break from the way they did it in the previous grade really does give the opportunity between that growth that's actually taken place and the little lull to go into the next grade saying, this is a fresh start. How do I want this to look? So the opportunity, even if your kid is in like kindergarten or 1st grade and like using developmentally appropriate language, but really saying, you're the author of this story of your life. And this is your kindergarten chapter. This is your 3rd grade chapter. This is your 7th grade chapter, your 10th grade chapter, whatever. And what do you want it to say? how do you want it to look? And it's not that they're expected to have like the whole idea, but think about if you were actually writing a chapter to a book, you might sit down and write an outline about like, here's where I think I want this to go. So who do you want to be this year? What are the things you're drawn to? You can do it completely differently than you did it last year. Know that you are in charge of that. So I think that that's a message that there's an opportunity to share with your kids right from the beginning. And
Great analogy.
And I say, have that conversation in the car. Sit down at the dinner table and ask them those questions. Get them to write it down. So that kind of, goes nicely into some other goal setting that is more appropriate for the older kids that I'll get to in a minute. But the other thing so let's start with young kids in terms of the basics that we want to create.
We're talking from pre-K up to
up
fifth,
to
sixth
say
grade.
fifth or sixth grade, exactly. Great. So this is going to, a lot of these are really based in routine. We've got lots of research that suggests very strongly that children thrive when there is a routine of some sort. It should not be a routine that's absolutely stifling, but it should be a routine that gives them something to count on and something to sort of like hold them. And I don't mean hold them as in, again, stifling them, but hold them in this really lovely way that they have a sense of like, here's what my day-to-day looks like. And now that I know that, here's how I can participate in that. So I'm not being like steered by the routine or dominated or controlled by the routine, but it's giving me a container in which I can move and know how I can do my best.
What I've learned over the last 2 years of doing this show, I used to be such, it sounds silly to say, I was against routine because it's just who I am. I'm like, I don't follow rules. We're gonna eat whenever we want. We're gonna have dinner sometimes here. We're gonna study. Just whatever. And then obviously once you realize that does not work, what I realized the routine really brought to our household, because our routine now has always been, and I love this routine. It's in the morning. Karen and I will get up the earliest, and I got to share that with everyone listening right now. Beat your kids to getting up. You don't do the like sleep, and they get up at 6, so then we get up at 6. Like if they're getting up at 7, and that's when their day starts. Up at 6 with your partner. And for us, it's the coffee. It's a time for us to look at each other and go, all right, this is what we've got planned today. We have a little recap, little coffee meeting, hey, what's up? Then I crank the music. I start Johnny Cash, right around like 7 a.m. So they know okay, it's time, Patsy Cline, Johnny Cash, like that, like
They're
boom.
So good.
So then the music starts, and then my daughter has to leave first. And then that goes into my son. The breakfast happen, and then everyone gets off to school. And then the thing that you obviously have, and we'll get into scheduling, is the activities that are planned after school. Now I'll fast forward to the evening. What I love doing now is everyone, for my daughter in high school, there's way more deeper homework. So that's kind of all bets are off. And I can't really say to her, hey, you got to do it between this time period. But for my youngest, pertaining to what you're talking about right now, he's in that demo that we're talking about. It's getting everything done. It's allowing play time and like physical energy time. And then before dinner, busting out what he needs to do homework wise. And then we do the dinner. And I can't stress enough to everyone, if you can make it happen at least once or twice a week, because I know everyone's schedules, dad's coming home at different times, mom, whatever, everyone has those different schedules and work schedules. But when you can have that dinner around the table.
Yes.
And then the thing that I love now that I've put into our schedule is, whether I wish it could be all 4 of us, but it's always my son and I, we go for a walk instead of, and that's replaced game time. That's replaced screen time.
Nice.
Because he goes for a walk. And what I've realized on these walks, and I know everyone's like, you can really do that. I shut up. And I know right now a lot of you are like, how is that possible? But we've gotten a few of those emails. Can Joe be quiet and maybe Anea talk? You know who you are. With that said, what I've realized on this walk with my son, or if you put your daughter or whoever in there, they open up.
Yes.
And if you just be quiet, that's where you hear, it's like you hear like actually how Kennedy was killed. Like it's just these secrets just start flying out, like contacts with the other world. And it's been such an amazing, and I'm glad I could share that with people. And it could be like seriously a 10-minute walk, a 15-minute walk. And it really allows them to just open up, and before you know it, your son or daughter is just telling you everything, and then and then come home.
Yep.
And then it really does a wind down before bedtime and then right to bed.
Lovely.
And
I love it.
The routine. But I only learned having a routine like that because of this show.
And have you noticed a difference?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I'm telling everyone right now.
Yeah,
like I
sure.
fought routine my whole life. I was adamantly against. I think Karen and I both were. I think we both were like routine to us was like a sign of, I don't know, like just
restriction.
Yeah, you know what it was? Yeah. I thought I was hearing restriction, not routine. And what you just said, these are life foundations to help yourself and to help your kid do better.
And I would argue that actually creating like routine or foundation will actually, if done right, it should allow more freedom. Freedom to know how to participate, what different ways, time for like these little gems, because otherwise what happens is if you're just like winging it, so for me, I think that choice to go on that walk is something that ideally would happen every other day. Ideally, if it can happen every day as a regular thing, if your kid wants it, that's brilliant. But the thing is if you didn't make that part of the routine where it's like almost a scheduled thing, it wouldn't happen. It would slip through, and all of a sudden, another school year has passed.
Absolutely. And the only thing, and you and I always talk about this, if you're listening right now and you're like, I wish I could take a walk. I work at night. It's so important to know that we get it. You know, I work at night. You know, I'm in nightclubs.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I do. But I'd be lying to you if I told you it was every night that we were doing this.
Right.
Sometimes it's only twice a week.
And
sometimes it's once a week.
You can get in. The key is regularity and showing, because think about all the messages in there in terms of you telling your child that they matter enough. What's going on in their day matters enough for you to take that time for just the two of you to go for a little walk, which has, of course, all kinds of benefits. But it sends a really important message.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let's jump back into,
yes.
We've talked about routine. We're still in the age bracket of that pre-K to about 7th grade, 6th grade.
Yeah. And I will say, based on what you just said, first step, always get together with your partner or co-parent, whether you're in the same house or not, and have this conversation first. What kind of routine do we want to create for our children, for this school year?
For the school year. So
that you're on the same page, ideally. And then once you've made those decisions as sort of the captains of the ship, then you bring it on in. And I'm going to say this, it's really, really important that even a kindergarten kid can participate in creating like decision-making around this routine. So always giving choices. It doesn't mean a kindergartner is probably not going to be able to handle a wide open, so what do you want this year to look like? But it could be something like, whether it's around, lunches or what kind of activities do you want to do this year? Those things are all really important parts of turning on their brain and showing them that their voice and the ability to have those decision-making muscles activated are really important.
Hey, we're going to hear from our sponsor really quick. We're talking about getting back to school, getting into the flow of things, and basically beating that morning chaos and the chaos that can be attached to a new school year beginning. This is our sponsor. We'll be right back after this. Do you ever feel that you do not have enough time in the day to do what you're supposed to get done? You're going to work, you're maybe trying to hit the gym, but you forgot that, I got to pick so-and-so up from daycare. I got to get my dad over to his doctor's appointment. I wanted to pick up the house before I left. Wow, check it out. How am I going to get everything done? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Go to care.com. Care.com. Care.com is the world's largest digital marketplace for finding and managing family care. That is right. Family care needs can be unpredictable. You got sick kids. You need someone to stay home. Man, both parents are out there trying to make a living. Your kids get sick. Who's going to stay home? Who's going to miss out on that cash? Now you go to care.com and they'll have someone for you that can look after your kids. Don't stress your life away. Seriously, most working parents worry about their kids every minute of the day. You're more at ease and more focused when you know your kids or your parents or even your pets are well cared for. Best part is this, care.com provides access to a variety of background check options you can purchase to help make sure that you're making the best hiring decision. That's my favorite part right there. They're letting you know there's a million different things for you to check out on the background check options so you know who's going to be there with your kids or with your parents or with your pet taking care of the situation. Care.com. Check it out now. If you go to care.com right now, You ready for this? To save 30% off care.com premium membership, visit care.com/rad parenting when you subscribe, and you're going to get 30% off. Like I said, the world's moving a million miles an hour. You just want to take care of your kids and all the responsibilities. Let care.com help. Rad Parenting, we are back with our special edition of Back to School, sponsored by our really, really cool sponsor that has tasty, tasty treats that you squeeze into your mouth called Go-Go Squeeze. They have 14 flavors. All I got to say is this: it's 100% fruit. Anea, they're a go-to in your house.
100, like, absolutely. They are just such an easy, like, oh my gosh, the fruit isn't ripe enough, or blah, 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 or I didn't get to the store. Go Squeeze. I know I'm going to be able to pop it into her lunch and know that she's got a nutritious snack.
And can I ask you, do you think she ever trades the Go-Go Squeeze for another track?
For another flavor?
For another flavor?
She laments the fact that at her school she's not allowed to.
Okay.
Yes.
So no one's gonna pinch the Go-Go Squeeze from your daughter.
I just have to have like every flavor in my cupboard so that she doesn't
There's
have to try to
14
get it
of them.
somewhere else. Yeah. They're not all in there at once, I can tell you that. But I'm really happy they exist.
Well, we are glad to welcome Go-Go Squeeze to the Rad Parenting community. And we will continue with our Back to School episode right now. Where we left off, we were talking about encouraging the routine. I spoke about how I was always like against routine because I thought it was restriction. We touched on that. I also let everyone know my schedule that we do here to kind of share with everyone. Now you're talking about what I love is actually having the question with your child, hey, what do you want this year to look like? And you're saying that can start as early as pre-K?
Absolutely. And it's going to just be, when they're that young, it's probably going to be presenting them with the options that you and your partner have talked about. So whether that's like, okay, so for extracurriculars, you can do soccer, or you can do dance, or you can do, whatever. And usually there's going to be, 2 or 3, but let them be involved in that decision. And even if it's just, well, I think I want to do this, and then maybe I could, whatever they come back with, you are helping to activate those decision-making muscles, which is really, really important. So giving them a hand, they're also going to be more invested in the routine if they feel like they've had a hand in co-creating it, okay? So routine in a general sense, really important. Decisions about extracurriculars, morning and bedtime routine, really important. And I would encourage you, because down the road, I'm going to say especially for parents who've got kids that are like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, in my opinion, they should be starting to participate in making their lunches so that by the time they're in middle and high school, they are making their own lunches, and not like random, like I'm going to put in every, sugary thing in the thing. Part of the assisting the lunch making when they're younger will help to establish, like, this is what a good balanced nutritional lunch looks like.
Yeah. And also when you're at the store, I've realized when we're actually buying the food, that's when the question's asked. Hey, what kind of lunch do you want to have?
Yep.
And obviously it's always, I'm going to put this in there. And I'm like, you can't have the full bag of corn chips from Trader Joe's or wherever we are. But what I've realized is the idea of like, oh, okay, I am going to make some sort of healthy choices here.
Yep.
But it's funny, if I allow my son to have the opportunity to make those choices, he generally will make the choice in the right direction and takes pride in putting together his lunch, throwing it in his backpack.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can even happen, like you mentioned, in terms of the grocery shopping, like getting them involved there and stopping and what a great opportunity to teach them how to read a nutrition label. Like,
teachable moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So we've got routine, we've got morning and bedtime, establishing what that's going to look like. We've got lunches, participating in or helping in some way is ideal. And then the next thing is making decisions around screen time. And so let's start with that.
Right now, every parent sighed.
Yes. So really,
that could be a whole episode.
We are absolutely, we've touched on this before, and we are going to do a full episode dedicated to some of the research that's coming out about screen time and how to make, informed decisions.
And I know we have some friends listening right now that, and their name escapes me, but they've written a few books, and they actually have I believe, a podcast and a site dedicated to screen time, the effects, the amount of time you should. And we're going to try to get them on the show with us so it can really give another insight to this question.
Yeah.
How much, how little screen time?
So whatever you and your partner have decided is going to be reasonable screen time. If you're going to say, let's just say that it's an hour of screen time, assuming that your kid gets home, between, if they have an after school thing, they're probably not home until like 4 or 5. And then if they're in bed by 8. And on that note, the internet is at your fingertips. Do a quick search about what is the amount of sleep that your child needs and figure out what, that's the information you need to set that bedtime, morning time, thing. But the internet is at your fingertips. Use it when you need to. And I completely lost my train of thought before. What was I saying before that, Joe?
No, what you're saying is with the screen time and setting up when you get back into the flow of things is that the evening is rolled around and it's that time of like, hey, we just got back from karate. We had dinner. Okay, you want a little bit of screen time?
Yes.
We still need to go. We're going to get some screen time in there, but also we're going to have to still, if there's homework to be done, where and how is that getting done?
Yeah.
And then also the wind down to getting someone into bed at the right amount of time. And also what you said was look up the hours of sleep that your child needs because that is so important. You mentioned that last week.
Tracing that back for me, Joe. Okay,
I didn't give you your coffee when you came in. I think that's what just happened there.
On that note, so in terms of the screen time, what I will say now, and knowing that we're going to do a bigger show on this, is within the amount of time that your child has from the time he or she gets home to the time that they've got to go to bed. If you say it's an hour, give them the opportunity to decide if they want that all in one session or they want to do 2 30-minute sessions or whatever. I would also strongly, strongly encourage you to set a routine where homework must be done before screen time happens. There may be this like inclination or they'll be asking for, can I just have screen time first and a little bit of screen time and then I'll do my homework? No, they'll be more motivated to sit and be focused with their homework. And that's not to say I'm saying the minute they walk in the door, they should sit down and do their homework, but establish a regular place they're going to do homework where you are easily accessible to support them.
So important.
And and I would encourage, although it's your rule to make, that you make screen time after any homework or other obligations are required. Or
can I add one thing too? If you've listened to the show, you know how my dad is super, super smart man, involved in education his entire life. And he started out as an English teacher and then went on to have this amazing career in academics. And one thing I always remember him telling me from the time I was a little kid all the way through high school was wherever I did my homework, he said, set it up correctly. And what he meant was, no, that's not doing homework on the couch with the book on your lap and the TV on in the background, or sitting, with the music blaring and laying on your bed. And it was something that really stuck with me because even at that age, I remembered, okay, and I would sit down and he goes, sit at your desk. You got to have nice lighting, and have the room set up for you to, be able to work in it in a way. And it really made a difference with, and I did terrible in school, so I would have even done worse if I don't think I would have had that set up. And I've applied that to both my son and daughter, and because they'll be like, oh, we're going to study this way, we're going to study that way. Oh, come on, get a desk, boom, sit in there. I really feel that that's important. And also, like you just said, setting up that area in the house that's going to be dedicated to that. Yeah,
and ideally somewhere that you, like you said, quiet, where they can focus. And part of what will help them embrace that plan is to say, I promise you, based on my own experience, having a specific time and place, sort of ideal environment for you to get it done will allow you to get it done that much more quickly. That much more effectively in terms of the product that that is going to be at the end of it, and that means you get to do this other stuff sooner than later, and so that will help to motivate them.
Love that.
So so that's establishing a place for homework, screen time, and then the other thing. So now I'm going to say, in terms of your role as a parent and your child actually going to school, with younger kids, it is. I'm not going to say imperative because there are some of us cannot, we don't have a ton of time. Here's the bare minimum. Make a point of meeting your child's teacher, which most schools have like a back to school night or something like that that's going to provide that opportunity anyway. But you want to know who is spending a significant amount of time with your child. You want to be on their radar. You want to be in communication with them. And I would also encourage you that even if you can only do it once, so I'm not saying make a commitment to be in your kids', classroom once a week. Even if you can volunteer for something once, where you get a sense of what this is the environment that my child is in every day, 5 days a week for 6 to 8 hours a day. And these are the children that he or she is interacting with. This is what's on the walls, what he or she is looking at while they're sitting there staring into space, tuning out their teacher. You want to know those things so that when you ultimately, here's the next thing, have regular family dinners as much as possible, and you ask them about their day, you have faces to put to those names, you have a sense of, what's going on. And by having met the teacher and established some sort of correspondence or email or whatever, you also have a line of communication so that if you ever hear something from your child where you're like, something doesn't sound right there. I'm either not getting the whole story or something sounds concerning there. You can immediately be engaged with the parent or with the teacher. And let me tell you, as a former teacher, although granted, it would be too much for a teacher to have every parent blowing up their inbox, most teachers really like the involvement of parents in the sense that I'm not doing this on my own. We are actually, it's like sort of it takes a village. Right? So the teacher actually knowing that you're in tune and you're in touch is going to be generally viewed as a benefit rather than a drag.
And you being a teacher, I'm sure that wouldn't the teacher love to put a face to the parent of the child?
Yes, for better or for worse, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes they're like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, no, please, I really encourage you to do that. So meet your teacher, get to meet your kid's teacher, get to know the environment he or she is going to be in, both in terms of the classroom and the school in general. Volunteer whenever you can so you have sort of a real inside scoop. And then the other thing I'm going to say, even for younger kids, is once you've got all of these things in place, like the routine, the schedule, whatever, put it on the fridge. Put it somewhere they can see it.
So basically everything that we've just spoke about today in this episode, you're saying basically almost have a calendar and a game plan that's up there for everyone to check out.
Exactly.
So they can literally visually see what's happening.
Here's what day it is. Here's what activities I've got. Here's how close we are to the weekend, which I'm going to say, okay, so in the summer, we kind of could be willy-nilly. Maybe you had a couple of weeks off work and you really had a lot of quality time with your kid. Well, now that's not the case. And so all of a sudden, weekends become really important. And this is especially for this younger group.
And you know what? When you have it on a calendar, because Karen, my wife, huge, she loves having the calendar. She has the old school calendar that you go to Staples.
Yeah.
Because we used to do it on our phone, and she's like, no one can see that.
Yes. Even do a shared family calendar if your kids are all on phones.
But in our household, it's old school in the sense that they need to see this huge calendar hung up on a wall. And what I realize is that when we have that calendar up there with all their activities, the weekends, like you said, become so much more important. And also there's a sense of let's not overbook ourselves on the weekend. Whereas if you don't see that calendar, I know, you just start saying, oh yeah, sleepover on Friday? Yeah, done. Oh, sleepover Saturday? Before you know it, you look at, you go, wait a minute. These people, everybody's been doing something for we haven't seen each other in 14 days. That can happen so quick.
So what I'm going to say about the weekend, and you can do it whatever you want on Saturday, whatever you want on Sunday, I would suggest that one of the days become dedicated to, activities or things that, if you need to, whatever, the other things that can't fit into the school week, including extracurriculars or play dates or whatever, have those be on one day. So if it's on Saturdays or Sundays, and then the other day, if you can, make it a family day.
Yeah.
Whatever that means for you, let me tell you that having that dedicated time, having it be part of a routine so your kids can count on it happening is going to make such a difference in terms of them having that foundation and feeling like they're part of this team, this family unit.
And for the parents to have teenagers, you're going to know, and I know right now when Anea said that, you're like, oh my gosh, the pushback that I've received from we're going to have a family day. We're going to have a family day. I'll share this. When the kids were younger, we definitely have always had one day out of the weekend, and it would go back and forth. Sometimes it would be Saturday. Sometimes it would be Sunday. It would be back and forth. But one of the things that I realized was even though they pushed back on it and would argue about it as they went into their teens, they still counted on it. And it was always, and what I was cool with, because things will change as your kids get older, especially during the school year. There's study groups that meet on Sunday night at 5:00. I would just move the family time around. Like sometimes it was like, hey, I know you're bummed out, but we're all going to breakfast together.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you're bummed out, but you know what? You don't have to be there till 7. So I'm making pasta now and we're hanging from 2 to 5.
Nice.
And they would, even when, sometimes there'd be pushback, they still, while we're sitting there, it would be like, all right, I get it. This is cool. And I really, really have to say this to the parents because, like I said, everyone's working. We're all trying to make a living. That if it just comes down to, hey, I ordered pizza, we're all sitting around eating this together.
Make it intentional. Make it deliberate. Make it routine.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be some epic meal that you worked on, all weekend, and because it never turns out perfect. I'll tell you that right now. I've spent so many times making amazing sauces. People sit down for 10 minutes and then they leave.
Isn't that a bummer?
And I would be like, But what I realized is they were hanging around with me the whole time in the kitchen while I was making the pasta.
Yes.
So it's that Thanksgiving thing. Here's the food, everybody. They eat and they split. With that said, don't even worry about making it epic because at the end of the day, you just get something everyone digs. You sit around the table. And even sometimes those dinners only last 30 or 40 minutes, but it's 30 or 40 minutes that you're all there with each other. And
checking in with each other. And again, the key thing I'm going to say is it's important that your child knows that they can count on those things.
Totally. And they will tell you, and I'll tell you this, they will say, they'll fight it like, oh, I don't want to have that dinner. Oh, it's such a bum out. But if you do it and you get it regular 2-3 times, by the third or fourth time, if all of a sudden they don't see that you're doing that, they get bummed.
Yes.
I thought we were doing dinner. And you're like, well, we're arguing about, I know, but I said I didn't like it, but I still want it, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Because there right there lies from the very beginning of what we said, routine.
Yes. Exactly.
There you go.
Okay, so that's a nice transition into the older groups. So
let's do that.
Let's do the 6th or 7th grade. I've probably said this before, but I'm really an advocate for keeping 6th graders in elementary school. I don't really think that they're ready for middle school, but you have to deal with what you've got. So let's say between 6th and 12th grade or 7th and 12th grade if your kid isn't going into middle school until 7th grade. So here's where so all of those things, more or less apply, and hopefully you've been doing them for a minute. But by the time they're going into middle school, this is a real opportunity for, the same thing. You are the author of your own story. All of a sudden, those things are going to become even more important because we know in our adolescent years, we are all about the I and becoming our own individual and wanting to steer the ship more, right? So here's an opportunity to sit down with your kid and be like, okay, for real, what do you want your year to look like? Let's really set down, let's set some intentions. This is a great opportunity to teach them goal-setting skills if you haven't done yet. So let's talk about 3 things that you want to accomplish in your 7th grade year or your 8th or your 10th or your 12th grade year, whatever. And it's really probably those questions are going to happen more in the middle school years. By the time they get to high school, they're going to have this in their own toolkit and they're going to do it automatically. Need to set my goals for my junior year. Need to set my goals for my freshman year, whatever. So that's the first thing. Then by this time, they should absolutely be making their own lunch. Parents, I'm sorry. I'm usually not this directive, but honestly, it's like we are doing our children no favors.
You're right.
By not requiring them to do things for themselves. As far as I'm concerned, they should also be doing their laundry, but a lot of people are like, really? That seems like a bit much, Anea. Whatever. At least please have them do their lunches and hopefully it's not brand new and they have some sense of taking a reasonably nutritious lunch. Okay. Then in terms of the scheduling, they should absolutely be participating in that. And it's probably at this time that somebody needs to be the voice of reason and really be driving home that idea of balance. I'm hyper critical of the way that we are rolling these days in overscheduling our children and overemphasis on you need to have straight A's or you're not going to get into Harvard. And if you don't get into Harvard, your life is over. Stop, please stop. Listen to your kids, figure out who they are trying to figure out they want to be and leave space. It's really important in their teen years to actually have complete downtime where they are just figuring out who the heck they are. And if all they're doing is go, go, go between school and an abundance of extracurriculars, there is no time for them to be doing any self-reflection, which is so critical at this developmental time.
Absolutely. And I've said it a million times on the show. I see it happen firsthand all the time because I have a teenager that's at a very, it's a college prep school, and I see these kids with these looks on their faces that I'm like, wow, it's high school. I get it. It's tough. There's a lot of
but you're not
changes.
the CEO of a company.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the thing, and I know right now, people that are worried about the college and the school and all of that. There's so many kids that high school is a blur for them. They're in college and they get out, and then they're sitting in that same bedroom going, I don't even know who I am.
Yes.
I'm not making that up. That's actually happening.
Yeah.
People, okay, I got this degree, but that's not who I am. I don't
That's
even
right.
know who I am. And then you're like, oh, cool. So now we just blew through your 4 years of high school, 4 years of college, and now you're sitting back in the same bedroom, and we were stressed the whole entire time.
Yes.
So I can't agree with that more.
So with your partner, really, really good question that, hopefully we're asking throughout the years that we're parenting, but definitely as our kids are moving into their adolescent years where they're really trying to figure out who they are, sit and talk with your partner or think for yourself, what do I mean when I say I want my child to be successful? How do we define success? And then take that question to your child. What would a successful 7th grade year or 9th grade year look like for you?
And I'm shaking my head because we had a show a while ago before you have your kids. Sit down with your partner and talk about all of the things that you're going to bring to the table that are important to you for raising this child, all the way from religion to schooling, and I can't stress enough. I see division so many times with parents where one parent is, if it's not A pluses and a 4.4, that's the deal now.
Yeah,
it's not even
I know.
4.0 anymore. You get a 4.0, there's kids that are like, that's lame. I got to be a 4.2.
Yep.
And there's parents, and I respect those parents that are like, no, that's where we're going. And then there's another parent in the same household that's like, wait a minute, if what are we putting on our child's head?
And your family is a classic example of this. Also, you could have your kids, who your kids are as individuals, and you could have 2 kids in your home that are very different. So where you have your daughter who's like, I want to go to a college prep school because this is what drives me and this is what's important to me, and you rose to the occasion and you're spending $1 million on her school, and where your son has a completely different personality and agenda and set of strengths that are going to be nurtured with a different set of circumstances. It's not going to be college prep for him. It's going to be something else that helps him to be his best self.
And the only way that
really important.
And the way that we got there, just really quick to touch on, it wasn't like, oh, hey, you figure it out, you do whatever you want. It was, we created opportunities for both of them to go out there and figure out, and also as a parent kind of step back and go, okay, this is working for her, this isn't working for him, oh, this is working for him, this isn't working for her. And then right around 7th grade was where both children said, hey, I feel I work better in this atmosphere.
Yes.
We were like, okay, we figured that out. And then also, like with my daughter, she was like, I remember the day when she said, I want to be tested. I go, well, that's going to be competition between other students. I want competition. I was like, all right, here you go.
Exactly.
I mean, we were in this school. She was in a school where it was like, no grades,
Totally
no homework.
Yep.
We don't. I don't even know if they were going to school. It was like, hey, I don't know what we're doing. It's like, And then she was like, I'm not feeling that. I want you. She used to wear a uniform. I remember in 6th grade, she was wearing a uniform, and people were like, why?
And
are
it
you
wasn't
wearing?
a uniform.
Yeah,
school.
it wasn't a uniform school because that's what she wanted.
Yes.
So with that said, super, super important for both parents to sit down with your partner and go, hey, with school, not only are we going to talk about the school year, but let's open up the conversation of how do we both feel that we want this to play out for them. Because once you start having those conversations, people have, well, I was always doing 6-7 hours of homework a day, and maybe your partner's like, I don't want that. I don't want that for my son or daughter.
And most importantly, look at your children and see what they're asking for. See what they're telling you they need, right? Yeah. Okay, so before we, just to sort of like start bringing this home.
Bring it home.
This is absolutely the time to discuss chores, being part of a team, Are they going to have a raised allowance? What is it? What are going to be the perks of being another grade ahead in terms of, we touched on that last week. So establish that. And then the last thing I'm going to say, which I think I just touched on a couple minutes ago, is this is a tremendous opportunity to really give them tools for setting and achieving goals. So like I mentioned, it could be as simple as, what are 3 things that you want to achieve? Let's sit down and make an action plan. Let's figure out how we're going to get you there, and then have check-ins once a month, once a quarter, whatever you need to do. What a tremendous set of tools or goal-setting tools to send them out into the world. You want your child to be successful, which to me I define as being their best, truest, fullest self. That is my definition of successful. One of the best ways that you can give them the tools that they can take into their adult life is to help them sit and first ask themselves, what do I want to accomplish this school year? And then how do I think I'm going to accomplish that? How I'm going to measure it? And then help them throughout the year with check-ins. There's nobody that is going to be more invested in their well-being and their success than you as their parent. And what a tremendous opportunity for them to learn skills that are going to serve them on the day-to-day and in their future.
Anea, great episode. Loved all the steps. Loved everything that you brought together for going back to school. One thing that you touched on at the very, very beginning of the episode that I am walking away from is, not only are you going to be helping yourself and your partner by pulling together a plan of how to go back to school, but also it really sets up your son or daughter to win, not only this year in school, but with setting up a foundation for a lifetime of being able, whenever something new starts, whether it's going to college, whether it's starting a new job, whether any of that, there's this new beginning, a new opportunity for success. I love that. Fired up on this side.
It's good. It's a very, and you could just listen to this episode at the beginning of every school year. Just come back to it.
We'll just come back to it. Hey, before we get out of here, really quick, a little bit of business. Anea is going to be up in Los Altos. That's in Northern California, and I know that we've got listeners up there. It's going to be going on September 12th. Anea will be in Los Altos at a speaking.
Los Altos High School,
Los
speaking
Altos.
on sexual assault prevention and affirmative consent.
And if you would like to go and find out when that is, all you have to go to aneabogue.com, and all the information for checking out that event is there. And then I will be telling the jokes. That's right. I'm coming up to Seattle at the Jewel Box Theater September 21st. This is a super, super cool theater. It's super small. It holds like 60 people. If you want to get tickets, you can go to joesib.brownpapertickets.com and get your tickets there. And then the next night, I am in wonderful Portland at the Hawthorne Lounge. And I know we've got a ton of listeners up there in Portland because I see your emails. I get the requests for so many questions from the people that listen to the show in Portland. I'll be at the Hawthorne Lounge September 22nd. And you can go to MikeThrasherPresents.com to get your tickets for that show. Super psyched to come up to the Northwest. All right, that's it. My name is Joe Sib.
And Anea Bogue.
We're out of here. Late.